So I just went out and saw Markiplier's new Iron Lung movie, and I want to start off by saying how proud I am of our boy for making it all the way up there. From raging at Octodad to being one of the first YouTubers on a news broadcast to having his own little YouTube shows, and now he's finally got there up on the big screen. And now for his first big picture, he took inspiration from a little game called Iron Lung, as all of you know, and the premise of which being that you're a convict that's been sent down into a blood moon on a mission to discover any answers you can about the existence of this place. For added context, there's been this major near extinction event called the Quiet Rapture, where humanity in space, all as we know it, is basically completely dead, and there's only a few final survivors. I'll be real, I couldn't remember the game very much while I was writing the script. I was rewatching his playthrough of that so I could, compare the game to the movie in my head. But yes, the movie itself. Mark plays a character called Simon, who has been arrested on the grounds of him being the reason that his facility was destroyed. And I apologize, I can't remember what the name of it was. I wasn't really note-taking in the theater like I was for the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. I was a bit too immersed. It kept me hooked the whole time. And before I cover spoilers, I'll say just a few things that I liked before I get more into it. I really love the submarine's design. I think he made it look really nice in comparison to the game, which, yes, the game is not nearly as expensive as the movie was, but he did really well with it. Like, him and his team, how they essentially upgraded it, made it look more like a submarine, gave it a bit more space, more depth, and I thought the shots in this movie were really incredible. Whoever directed the camera, I love you so much. Thank you for your service. They kept the scene feeling fresh all the time, and they were always changing the angles when the mood needed it, getting these nice, really close-up shots of the lights, these overhead angles that would really contribute to how claustrophobic the place felt. They got really creative with it, and like, it never felt boring to be in the Iron Lung. There was always like a different way you could look at it, all that. The effects of the film were also really impressive. I know the blood was practically done, which is insane considering how much there is of it, especially towards the end of it. And the creatures too, holy good god, geez, were they scary. I think maybe the weakest point for me was the dialogue. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think it was really well acted. Mark does a really great job, but at times the dialogue felt like it could be a bit like vague or amateur. I can't really think of anything specific that I disliked. I'll mention something when we get to the spoiler section, but sometimes it just felt a little like it could have used a bit of work, but I don't know how I would improve it. If you want to avoid spoilers, I would say click off now. I'm not going to be recounting the movie exactly how I did for the FNAF review that I've done, but I'll just kind of go over things that stood out to me that were in my head right after the movie. So now that all the spoiler people have clicked off, I'll say one of the dialogue things I wasn't too big a fan of was the salvation thing with the him hallucinating the ghosts of the past people who were sent down here. I don't know, maybe I just am not the person for that. I just thought it was a little kind of lost me a bit, but everything else was pretty well done, I think. And yeah, the confined perspective of the submarine was really amazingly done, and the fact that we learned he's welded shut in there, I thought it created this sense of dread knowing that it's impossible for him to get out on his own unless someone on the team helps him out. And like I said too, I really like the way that the x-ray was done. I like how it served as his only light in the back of the ship. Just the style of how the images turned out, that grainy, uncanny look to it. And the way that the monster looked was horrific, truly. Like, most horror creatures I've seen aren't as disturbing, but this thing, on a moon made of human blood, this monster seems to have this strangely human-ish face, which it made me wonder, like, did it always look like this when it lived here, or did the death of humanity and all of its blood culminating here affect and alter its appearance? And it behaves like a creature trying to understand the submarine too. It doesn't just crush the Iron Lung right away. It's seen multiple of these come down here, and it's probably curious as to why so many of them are suddenly appearing. It seems to be more interested in like playing with the iron lung and tossing it around, seeing what happens. And when the X-ray vision is flashed onto it, it retreats back into its tunnel of flesh too. Like it's like that light was blinding and it hurt it, so it runs away. Also, when we are above the blood and we're in the lab, I thought it was cool to get a look at the facility. You don't get that in the game of Iron Lung. You don't ever get to see what it looks like above the water. So it was nice to get a little peek of that. And I thought Ava was an interesting, mysterious character. I really want to know how she got that scar. Like, was she in the ocean too? And did she have an accident? Did she know that the blood was hostile? And was her blood, like, was she attacked by the blood and did her skin repair over it? I'm interested to know more about her. And my friend told me after the movie that Jacksepticeye was the welder in that scene, which I didn't notice at first. I think that's pretty neat. Simon panics when Ava tells him that he needs to go back down to retrieve a fragment for research, and he insists something is down there alive, and when no one listens to him, he slams the camera button to get attention from them, which blasts the whole room with a strong dose of radiation. I learned after the film that the beam he was using would have had to be like 300 times stronger than an average X-ray machine because of how thick the blood is in the moon, and just like how far out the X-ray camera would have to go to be able to scan things like 30 feet ahead and all that. So basically when he did that, when he flashed the picture in that room, he basically doomed everyone to be dead very soon after. Each picture he took would be microdosing him with radiation over time too, which would also explain why the submarine got so hot for him. I thought the scene where he was talking to the ghost was well done. Like the foreshadowing of the light not being on was evident that, you know, it was part of his imagination. And Simon improvising his own little map to mark down where he went after being dislodged from the tunnel was pretty genius on his end. The tension that was created by the oxygen slowly depleting over time too really added to the overall feel, like that he has a time limit until he's out and he's dead. Like, not only is the monster a threat, not only is the land a threat, but just the fact that he's not getting his oxygen replenished too. That scene where the glass cracked too on the front of the ship and the blood splurted on his face, made me cringe really hard. Mark, I'm on to you. When you took your shirt off for that scene, as purely fan service. There was no need for the harness underneath all that. But aside from that, they did a nice job of giving you false hope for Simon too. There was a lot of ups and downs, feeling like there was no way he would ever get out, and then like near the end you think maybe there's a slim chance that he could pull it off. Retrieving the dad, that just seems like so simple, and yet even if he did resurface, like what would he have to come back to? Simon destroyed his home, all that he had, and his brother. I think one of the only other people who survived what happened is dead. Like, he can't get that back. Toward the ending too, I love when he removes the bandages and on his arms we get to see that revolting skin that he's got now, and like the blisters and pus that are building up. My friend and I discussed this, and I almost wonder if Simon would have been able to prevent that if he used the alcohol he had earlier and like poured it on his wounds, and maybe that would have been able to save him from it all. I guess it would be pointless because as the hull gets breached and flooded inevitably in the end, but god, his arm coming off there too was so brutal. Like, he wasn't even able to scream when that happened, and in his last moments he knew he had to do whatever he could to get the box back to the surface. This is bigger than him after all. I found the reveal of the moon being made of human blood terrifying too. Like, after the rapture, all of humanity that was killed got juiced and mushed into this one celestial being. Of course, Simon's descent into insanity and paranoia was really peak, I think, too. How he was so calm about it at first. Like, he was just like, oh yeah, if I just go down here and I get whatever pictures they need, they'll let me free and I can be okay. But then, like, as he realizes that's not gonna happen, he gets more irritable and he has this slow spiral down and down throughout the movie. And I'm certain the low oxygen, thirst, hunger, all that contributed to it, but the dim light and isolation, I think, were certainly like the biggest factors of that. And despite how unstable he was becoming, I like that when the hallucination says his name, he realizes it's fake right away, and he's able to reverse engineer that thinking when Ava doesn't know his name, and he calms down and he seems a bit ashamed of how irritable he was getting at her and how he was probably about to break the radio again because he was like, I'm still hallucinating, I have to break this, I have to break this. The dream sequence where he was in the pool of blood with the giant eye, I like the detail that his brother's gift was what tethered him to the moon, foreshadowing that having it react with the blood would be how he defeats the monster in the end. And the blood being hostile too, just like the blood itself trying to kill him added a lot, I think. Like the planet is alive and possibly the souls of the dead humans that were all slaughtered on Rapture Day were trapped and trying to assimilate Simon into joining them. That's everything I wrote down. That's kind of the main takeaways I had that I can remember from the movie. There's certainly a lot I'm forgetting because I just saw it yesterday, and I'm just really excited that I got to see it. Overall 10 out of 10 movie. I highly recommend it. I do think it's more of like, you kind of have to be a fan of like the horror games and stuff. I don't know if it's much of a general audience movie. Maybe it is. I can't say for sure. I would really like to see what you guys have to say about the movie, what you guys thought. You know, let me know in the comments what your theories are, what your main takeaways were from the movie, what you liked most. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Love you guys very much. Bye bye.